영국의 한 환경단체 지금 당장 석유 사용을 멈춰야 한다고 주장하는데요. 길거리에 누워서 차량 통행을 막고 각종 스포츠 대회장에 난입하기도 하고요. 유명 예술품에 페인트를 뿌리는 등 과격 시위를 펼치는 단체입니다.
What is worth more? Art or life? Is it worth more than food? Worth more than justice? Are you more concerned about the protection of a painting or the protection of our planet and people?
자신이 하고 있는 일이 정당한 일이라는 확신에 차 있는 얼굴이죠. 그러나 실제로는 일반인들의 일상을 방해하는 일을 하고 있는데요.
They are so annoyed.
Let the ambulance through.
Get out the way! Get out the way!
Yeah.
Why are you gonna
No.
move? That's terrible.
The traffic, and as a result, you're creating pollution. You're creating pollution.
I'm not a criminal. I'm a scared little kid trying to fight for their future.
자신을 겁에 질린 소녀라고 말했는데 또 생긴 게 남자 같기도 하고 약간 전총조가 떠오르는 비주얼이죠. 한 TV 프로에서 전문가와 화석 연료 사용에 관한 토론을 펼칩니다.
Wind doesn't blow. When we had really cold days, we were reliant on importing from the EU on coal and on gas. How are we going to replace that in the short term?
Quite frankly, I'm not a scientist. What I am doing is listening to what all the experts are saying. We're living in this insane world where the experts aren't being listened to. United Nations has called for no more oil and gas. The International Energy Agency has said we can have no new oil and gas. The IPCC report, the largest global report on the climate crisis, have all said we can have no new oil and gas. How many more experts need to say it?
Because we can't do it tomorrow. What are we going to do in terms of transport? That we still need petrol for cars and we need diesel for lorries. How are we going to get goods into supermarkets without this?
Quite frankly, I'm not a scientist. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the world and we're living the effects of the climate crisis today. Right now, people are dying. Children are starving. Families are fleeing their home.
지금 맹목적인 주장만 있고 근거가 전혀 없죠. 구체적인 증거를 대라고 하면 나는 과학자가 아니다권으로 방어하고 있고요.
Energy.
And it's preventable.
Energy-
We have the solutions.
Cheap energy is one of the things that has hugely extended life expectancy by the ability to control temperatures, whether this is by air conditioning or by heating, the ability to store food more effectively, the ability to transport food, and indeed use fertilizers to grow more food, has all been essential in increasing life expectancy. Taking all that away would be disastrous for life expectancy.
Do you know what's essential in keeping our food supply? Tackling the climate crisis. This year we lost a third of our wheat crops, half of our potato crops, and it's only going to get worse. We're heading to a future where people are going to be fighting over the last loaves of bread at Lidl.
지금 이 여자 말대로 석유 사용을 중지하는 순간 진짜 빵 한 쪽 가지고 살 수도 있죠. 화석 연료를 대체할 수 있는 방법을 제시해야 되는데 공허한 외침으로밖에 안 들리고요.
But the only way we get our wheat crop is by putting the fertilizers on that come from fossil fuels. How are we going to replace that? That the productivity of organic farming is so much lower than of modern farming methods. We cannot feed the world on organic farming, and you must know that.
How do you expect to feed the world when our crops are destroyed by droughts, floods, wildfires, storms?
You've always had weather events that have affected crops, but that actually using fossil fuels for fertilizers and moving on to genetic modification of crops has enormously increased the yield. That since Malthus rate, we've increased agricultural productivity by about 2% per annum. And this is what is allowing people to get extended life expectancy because they've got more certainty of food. And this all depends on cheap energy, which has come from fossil fuels.
Jacob, you have 6 children. Do you not care about their future? Do you not care about them being able to feed themselves? Because
남자는 지금 팩트를 기반해서 말을 하고 있는데 보라돌이는 갑자기 자녀 이야기로 상대방을 인면수시 맞벌로 만들어 버립니다.
right now, under this government's policies, your 6 children are heading towards a future that is filled with life-threatening extreme weather events, crop failures, famine, war. suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
I think you've taken the evidence for an evolving climate and then applied it in an extraordinarily extreme way, and are forgetting about the
I
enormous
can't believe you're
advantages.
talking to me about an evolving climate.
Well, the climate is
People
all.
are dying.
But this
Do
is
you
a
know
statement.
how many people are suffering around the world?
What evidence is there that this is because we're using fossil fuels, that the climate evolves, but more people die each year from cold than from heat? As
Have
you
you
know.
read the IPCC
I've
report?
looked
What
at
do you mean? What science?
그럼 IPCC 보고서면 암행어사 마펜가요? 네. 논리적으로 설명하는 것이 아니라 본인이 호소하고 있죠. 토론에서 하지 말라는 거 지금 다 하고 있고요. 발암물질 1급 제조사 자격증을 보유하고 있는 것으로 보입니다.
But in terms, you're making extreme claims, but you're suggesting by not using fossil fuels, we would not produce the food we need to feed the world population.
I'm
that would be
suggesting that if we
tomorrow.
keep on heading down this genocidal path of mass destruction, then no, there won't be any foods in the supermarket. Then we will see vast swathes of the world uninhabitable. We will see mass displacement of people.
내 말대로 안 하면 당장 큰일이 날 것이다. 무조건 내 말을 믿어라. 사이비 종교 교주에도 잘할 것 같죠?
If you took out fossil fuels tomorrow, you would simply not have the productivity of agriculture you need to feed 8 or 9 billion people. And that would be tomorrow. And I'm not saying you shouldn't reduce emissions, not arguing that. I'm simply saying you must do it when you have the technology to replace the energy that you're using. Because otherwise, all the consequences you're arguing for will happen immediately. We will simply not have the food we need to feed the population of the world.
철부지 일진 딸 달래는 아버지의 빙이 됐고요. 자신이 하는 일에 대해서 명확한 증거가 있어야 되는데 감정에 치우쳐서 지금 사리 판단이 안 되는 것으로 보입니다. 브라들이 어떤 주장이든 실현 가능성이 있어야 됩니다. 공산주의도 말은 그럴싸하죠. 그러나 공산주의가 실제로는 독재 정권이 되듯이 겉만 그럴싸한 주장은 굉장히 조심해야 됩니다.
Several activists have blocked a road nearby.
How long are you going to stay here for?
Just Stop Oil has been doing this around the country for weeks now.
이 사람들 시위하러 올 때 자동차 타고 왔을 건데 사실 입고 있는 옷도 석유 부산물들이 많죠. 탄비 옷 입고 수십 킬로미터 걸어서 와야 진정성이 있을 것 같고요.
Well, what they're saying is they want maximum disruption to stop the government extracting oil and gas.
Yeah, but that's cooking oil.
석유 운반 트럭이라고 해서 잡고 있었는데 알고 보니 식용유차.
They don't even know who funds them. Who funds you guys?
Just donations from the public.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right. Do you know that Just Stop Oil has taken massive donations from, oil dynasties such as Jean-Paul Getty? Do you know that? Sorry?
No, it's not.
No, it has. Do you want me to show you?
No, we're not.
You are. I've just told you. You're funded by the Climate Emergency Fund in LA, of which the majority of them are heirs to oil dynasties, including Jean-Paul Getty.
No point if you're just going to throw mud that doesn't make any sense.
I'm telling you facts. How's that mud? Look, this is your favourite newspaper, The Guardian. Just Climate Emergency Fund donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to activists. They include Jean-Paul Getty, whose oil dynasty made him a multi-billionaire.
자신이 하는 일이 옳다고 폭력적인 방법으로 상대방을 이해시키려고 한다면 범죄자나 다를 것이 없죠. 내가 믿는 종교가 좋으니까 너는 무조건 믿어야 된다. 이런 논리와 똑같은 거고요. 화석연료 사용을 줄여하는 것은 맞습니다. 어린아이들도 다 아는 내용이죠. 그러나 마땅한 대안도 없으면서 폭력적인 방법으로 시위하는 것은 분명 잘못된 행동입니다. 기부금 타내려고 쇼하는 것으로 오해를 살 수 있고요. 자신의 주장에 대한 논리와 근거가 있고 폭력적인 방법 말고 적으로 이해시키려는 노력이 필요할 것으로 보입니다. 다음에 더 재밌는 내용으로 돌아오겠습니다. 시청 감사합니다.